Well, COVID-19 cases among children have soared in the past few weeks, not months, but weeks. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, 5.7 million have been infected since the pandemic began. In August, the number of children infected with COVID-19 topped the number of adults infected. In states like Tennessee, the number of children with COVID-19 continues to rise. Health officials say the number of children with COVID is lower in the states with high vaccination rates. Last month, get this, 86 children were hospitalized with COVID-19 in Tennessee. 12 of them were on ventilators, and so far 20 children in the state have unfortunately died from COVID-19. Now, according to a new study from the National Cancer Institute, the pandemic hit black people the hardest, something we've been talking about a lot here at BNC. Now, the study found that they are more likely to die from the virus, and the study looked at deaths between March and December 2020. It took into account the number of expected deaths and also counted the 477,000 extra deaths, finding that 74% of that number was because of COVID-19. Health officials fear that the pandemic has even decreased the progress made with the mortality gap between black and white people. And in Florida, the U.S. Education Department is questioning why the state has not yet submitted the plan for how it will use federal COVID-19 relief funds for schools. The agency sent a letter to Florida's Education Commissioner Monday looking into why the plan was not submitted. Well, Florida is the only state agency that has failed to do so, resulting in a delay of more than $2.3 million it could use to address the needs of students impacted by the pandemic. Well, more and more people are reportedly using religious exemptions to avoid getting the COVID-19 vaccine. BNC's Derek Lewis has more on this loophole around the COVID-19 mandate.
Dr. Joe Ratliff has always encouraged the 6,000 members at his Houston church to get vaccinated. There's a mandate for his staff. However, everyone isn't on board.
We require the vaccinations for our employees, and there's always been a couple who've either given medical or religious reasons and stuff, only not to be founded.
Those employees at the church use religious exemption as a reason to avoid getting the shot.
I think it's a hoax. I think for the most part there's no foundation or no basis for it. It's a pretty legitimate escape, you know, because it's very hard to, I guess, say validate it, you know, or disqualify it.
Thousands of people are reportedly doing it, including police officers and government workers around the country. The trend is growing as President Biden requires businesses to require their employees get vaccinated. The Pope, who has encouraged the vaccine, says education helps. There is a need for clarity and talk calmly with these people. In the Vatican, we are all vaccinated except for a small group, and we are studying how to help them. Pastor Ratliff is working to educate the youth as well.
The challenge now, especially with the teenagers and the millennials, I mean, there's no way you should avoid this, and I think that's the challenge, that they have to be able to do that. They feed on a lot of misinformation, you know, the Tuskegee stuff. Well, the issue there was there was no vaccine given. That was the problem.
Hospitals are getting an overwhelming amount of requests for the exemption. The Labor Department says if this becomes too much of a burden on employers, then these accommodations can be denied. Dr. Ratliff believes there are several reasons people are using religious exemption.
The fear, the suspicion of government and control, and a lot of misinformation.
In New York, I'm Dre Clark for Black News Tonight.
Now, there is some wiggle room with this exemption. A person's religious belief does not have to come from an organized religion, nor does it have to make any sense to anyone else. However, the belief cannot be solely political or social idea based. Well, Attorney General Merrick Garland, he has ordered the FBI to look into the recent spike in threats against educators. Garland called for the FBI to look within local leaders nationwide as threats against educators have had a sharp rise following highly politicized and publicized issues such as critical race theory and COVID-19 mask mandates. Now, the FBI Director and Attorney General released a documented statement announcing the Justice Department will be working with law enforcement in response to the criminal conduct directed towards school personnel within the next 30 days. Now, this order comes just days after the National School Board Association reached out to President Biden for support in investigating the recent threats. Well, get this, a major car manufacturer is expected to pay out millions of dollars after racial abuse claims. A San Francisco federal court ruled that Tesla must pay $130 million in punitive damages and $6.9 million in emotional damages, according to the verdict in a racial harassment case brought on by a former black worker. Now, according to reports, Owen Diaz, who worked as an elevator operator at the Tesla factory in Fremont, California back in 2015, well, he claims that he faced a Jim Crow era work environment where co-workers verbally abused him, repeatedly using the N-word, and told him to, quote, go back to Africa. Diaz says that he suffered sleepless nights and weight loss due to the racial harassment. Tesla's vice president and people argue against the facts and verdict of the case in a blog post saying that, in part, the Tesla of 2015 and 2016, when Mr. Diaz worked in the Fremont facility, is not the same as the Tesla of today. I'm happy he's getting all that money now. Well, more help is headed to Louisiana following Hurricane Ida. The state is launching a shelter program for families living in unsafe conditions due to the storm. BNC's Jamise Price has more.
Apollo's fears works on his home during the day and sleeps in his big rig at night.
I lost all my roofing, and the roofing actually caused to be water damage. So that caused extreme damages to my whole entire home.
It's the result of Hurricane Ida's Category 4 storm winds, so powerful it damaged his roof and destroyed homes surrounding him. A month after Ida, the water damage has turned to mold, making it unsafe for him to live there.
Every room, bathroom, floors, walls, ceilings, everything has to be basically gutted.
Apollo's isn't alone. Thousands of people in Louisiana are struggling to find shelter. Governor John Bel Edwards called it the #1 challenge following Ida. But now the state is working to address the housing issue with the help of FEMA.
With the extent of the damages and the location of some of the damages, and the fact that hotels weren't generally available at the same level as last year, they authorized this policy where we could use travel trailers and other temporary shelter type housing.
Families living in the hardest hit areas are eligible for Louisiana's new temporary sheltering program. Families could be approved for RVs, travel trailers, or a hotel stay.
We know that there's going to be more demand than what we're going to be able to meet. So we're really looking towards those places where the home is really unlivable, and working kind of with the worst circumstances first.
I'm Jamise Price for Black News Tonight.
Be sure to join the conversation. We want to hear from you. Go ahead and head over to our BNC Instagram and Twitter pages to let us know how you feel. Also visit our website, bnc.tv, and subscribe to our YouTube page to check out clips from the show.